A woman waves goodbye to her family, laces up her running shoes, and heads out for a jog. Little did she know, this routine run would spark a national manhunt, a shocking revelation, and a $300,000 lie that would change her life forever. This story is based on true events that unfolded on November 2, 2016. Sherri Papini, a 34-year-old mother of two, left her home in Redding, California, for what should have been a routine run. As hours passed and Sherri failed to return or pick up her children from daycare, her husband Keith grew increasingly worried. Desperate for answers, Keith turned to technology. Using the Find My iPhone app, he traced Sherri's phone to a location about a mile from their home. What he discovered sent chills down his spine. Sherri's phone and earbuds lay abandoned on the ground at the intersection of Sunrise Drive and Old Oregon Trail. With his wife nowhere in sight, Keith immediately contacted the police. Little did he know, this call would set in motion a chain of events that would captivate the nation and unravel in ways no one could have predicted. 21 days. That's how long Sherri Papini remained missing, leaving her family in anguish and investigators scrambling for answers. What happened during those 3 weeks? As news of Sherri's disappearance spread, the quiet town of Redding, California, was thrust into the national spotlight. Local law enforcement, joined by community volunteers, launched an extensive search operation. The media descended upon the area, transforming a personal tragedy into a public spectacle. Keith Papini, Sherri's husband, found himself at the center of a storm of attention. Cameras rolled as he made emotional pleas for his wife's safe return. "Bring her home," he begged, his voice cracking with desperation. The raw emotion of a family torn apart resonated with viewers across the country, turning Sherri's disappearance into a story that gripped the nation. As days turned into weeks, the investigation intensified. Sheriff Tom Bosenko revealed that authorities were pursuing every lead, examining cell phone records, bank accounts, emails, and social media profiles. The search expanded, with nearly 20 warrants issued in the hunt for clues. Speculation ran rampant. Where was Sherri? What could have happened to this young mother on her routine jog? The public's imagination ran wild, fueled by each new tidbit of information released by law enforcement. One such piece of information sent shockwaves through the community. Sheriff Bosenko announced they were on the lookout for a dark-colored SUV. This detail added a sinister edge to the case, suggesting a potential abduction and raising fears about safety in the once peaceful town. As the investigation progressed, a troubling pattern emerged. Each new lead seemed to raise more questions than answers. The uncertainty fueled public interest, keeping the story alive in news cycles and social media discussions. The emotional toll on Keith and the Papini family was evident. With each passing day, hope mingled with dread. Keith's public appearances became fewer and more strained as the weight of his wife's absence bore down on him. The community rallied around the family, organizing vigils and fundraisers, their support a beacon of light in an increasingly dark situation. As Thanksgiving approached, the case seemed to be at a standstill. The initial flurry of activity had given way to a tense waiting game. Would Sherri ever be found? And if so, in what condition? Then on Thanksgiving Day, the unexpected happened. In a twist that seemed almost too cinematic to be true, Sherri Papini was found alive. The news broke like a tidal wave, washing away weeks of fear and speculation. The nation held its breath as news broke of Sherri's reappearance on November 24, 2016. After 21 days of agonizing uncertainty, the missing mother of two had been found alive, but the circumstances of her return were far from the joyous homecoming her family had hoped for. Motorists spotted Sherri on the side of Interstate 5 near Yolo, California, about 150 miles from where she had vanished. She was emaciated, battered, and clearly traumatized. The physical toll of her ordeal was immediately apparent. Keith Papini reported that his wife weighed a mere 87 pounds when she was found, a stark indication of severe malnutrition and abuse. As details emerged, the public's initial relief gave way to horror. Sherri's nose was broken, and her long blonde hair had been cut short. But the most chilling detail was yet to come. Branded on her shoulder was a message that read, "Exodus," a cryptic mark that would spark intense speculation and fuel the growing mystery surrounding her disappearance. Sherri's account of her captivity was nothing short of nightmarish. She claimed she had been abducted by two Hispanic women who kept her bound and isolated. According to her story, the women concealed their identities by wearing masks or keeping her head covered throughout her captivity. The details were sparse but shocking, painting a picture of a harrowing 3-week ordeal. Sheriff Tom Basenko told reporters, "We are very ecstatic to report that Sherri Papini has been located and has been reunited with her family." Media outlets quickly dubbed it a Thanksgiving miracle, a narrative that resonated deeply with a public hungry for a happy ending. The national media, which had been following the case closely, descended upon Redding once again, now covering what appeared to be an incredible story of survival against all odds. Sherri's ordeal became the topic of countless news segments, talk shows, and social media discussions. As the initial shock of Sherri's return began to subside, questions started to surface. How had she managed to escape her captors? Why had she been released? And who were these mysterious Hispanic women who had allegedly held her for 3 weeks? As the initial shock of Sherri's return subsided, a cloud of suspicion began to form. What if her dramatic reappearance wasn't the miracle it first appeared to be? Law enforcement officials, initially relieved by Sherri's safe return, soon found themselves grappling with a growing list of inconsistencies in her account. The more they questioned her, the more her story seemed to shift and change. One of the most glaring issues was the convenient timing of her reappearance. Thanksgiving Day, a date that seemed almost too perfect, too cinematic. It was as if her return had been scripted for maximum emotional impact. As detectives pressed for more details, Sherri's narrative began to unravel. Her description of her captors, initially vague, became more detailed, but also more inconsistent. Sometimes they were masked, sometimes not. The constant playing of mariachi music, a detail that had initially seemed so stereotypically specific, now raised eyebrows. The physical evidence, too, began to tell a different story. While Sherri's injuries were real, forensic experts noted peculiarities. The cuts and bruises, while visually alarming, were superficial. The brand on her shoulder, a shocking detail that had captured public attention, showed signs of controlled application rather than the chaotic mark one might expect from violent kidnappers. But it was a piece of DNA evidence that truly set alarm bells ringing. Investigators discovered male and female DNA on Sherri's clothing, DNA that didn't match her or her husband Keith. This finding opened up a whole new avenue of investigation. Who were these unidentified individuals? And how did their DNA end up on a supposed kidnapping victim? As the inconsistencies mounted, investigators began to dig deeper into Sherri's past. They discovered a history of dramatic stories and attention-seeking behavior dating back to her teenage years. One particularly troubling incident involved false allegations of abuse against her own parents, a claim that had triggered a full investigation before being proven false. This pattern of behavior cast a new light on Sherri's current situation. Could this elaborate kidnapping story be another cry for attention? The possibility, once unthinkable, now seemed increasingly plausible to the investigators working the case. The more they looked, the more questions arose. Sherri's relationships came under scrutiny. Her marriage, seemingly picture-perfect from the outside, began to show cracks under the pressure of investigation. Just as Sherri's story seemed to be falling apart, a startling discovery would expose the elaborate deception at its core. How far would one woman go to escape her ordinary life? The answer to that question came on March 3, 2022, when federal agents arrested Sherri Papini on charges related to her supposed kidnapping. The twist? There had been no kidnapping at all. The entire ordeal had been an elaborate hoax orchestrated by Papini herself. Investigators revealed that during her 3-week disappearance, Sherri had been staying with her ex-boyfriend, James Reyes. She had convinced him that she needed to escape an abusive marriage, playing on his emotions to secure his help. All the while, Reyes remained oblivious to the media frenzy and nationwide search sparked by Sherri's disappearance. The injuries that had shocked the nation? Self-inflicted. Sherri had gone to extraordinary lengths to support her fabricated narrative, including cutting her own hair, starving herself, and even branding herself. The mysterious DNA found on her clothing? It belonged to Reyes, a detail that ultimately led investigators to uncover the truth. As the facts came to light, the scale of Papini's deception became clear. She had not only fooled her family and community, but had also wasted countless hours of police time and resources. The investigation into her disappearance had cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Sherri Papini entered into a plea agreement. During her sentencing in September 2022, Sherri finally took full responsibility for her actions. "I am deeply ashamed of myself for my behavior, and so sorry for the pain I've caused my family, my friends, all the good people who needlessly suffered because of my story," she told the court. Her attorney cited past mental health issues as contributing factors to her actions, painting a picture of a troubled woman rather than a calculating criminal. The consequences of Sherri's lie were severe. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison. Additionally, she was ordered to pay $300,000 in restitution, covering the costs of the extensive police investigation her hoax had prompted. The aftermath of Sherri Papini's elaborate deception sent shockwaves through her family, community, and the nation at large. Unable to reconcile with the magnitude of her lies, her husband Keith filed for divorce and sought full custody of their children. Sherri's actions didn't just impact her immediate family, they sent ripples through her entire community. The media, which had played a significant role in amplifying Sherri's story, now found itself with a new narrative to explore. The case that had once been dubbed a Thanksgiving miracle became fodder for true crime documentaries and television specials. In 2023, the story even inspired a Lifetime movie titled Hoax: The Kidnapping of Sherri Papini. Sherri Papini's $300,000 lie shook a community and captivated a nation. Her fabricated kidnapping story wasted valuable resources and exploited public sympathy. The case exposed how easily truth can be distorted, even in the age of instant information. Papini's mental health issues, cited by her lawyer, highlight the complex factors that can drive such deceptions. Her ability to maintain the lie for years, despite mounting evidence, demonstrates the power of a well-crafted narrative. This case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of critical thinking when faced with sensational stories. It challenges us to question our assumptions and seek verifiable facts, even when emotions run high. As one expert noted, the truth can be a complex and multifaceted entity, often obscured by the narratives we choose to believe. Papini's story ultimately reveals more about human nature than any fictional kidnapping ever could.